বিসমিল্লাহির রহমানির রহিম। বন্ধুরা কেমন আছেন? আশা করি ভালো আছেন। হেমুজিকি চ্যানেলে আপনাদেরকে স্বাগতম। বন্ধুরা, আজ আমরা ইংরেজি সাহিত্যের উপর অতি গুরুত্বপূর্ণ 200টি প্রশ্নোত্তর নিয়ে আলোচনা করব। প্রশ্নোত্তরগুলো মুখস্থ করে ফেলেন। ইনশাআল্লাহ আশা করি সকল পরীক্ষা এখান থেকে অবশ্যই কমন থাকবে ইনশাআল্লাহ। বন্ধুরা, চ্যানেলটি সাবস্ক্রাইব না করলে সাবস্ক্রাইব করে আমাদের সাথেই থাকুন। The Merchant of Venice is written by William Shakespeare, who wrote the famous tragic play King Lear. William Shakespeare. Shakespeare's Julius Caesar is a tragedy. Renaissance means the revival of learning. Shakespeare wrote brilliant dramas. Hamlet by Shakespeare is a tragedy. In which year Shakespeare died? 1616 AD. Francis Bacon is an essayist. Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice is a tragic comedy. Which of the following is a comedy written by Shakespeare as you like it? Silent Woman is written by Ben Jonson. Elizabethan tragedy is centered on revenge. To be or not to be is the beginning of a famous soliloquy from Hamlet. Who is the author of The Taming of the Shrew? William Shakespeare. Who is considered to be the father of English prose? King Alfred the Great. Confused. A Shakespearean play consists of 5 acts. Macbeth is a play. Shylock is a character of The Merchant of Venice. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in our philosophy, quoted from Shakespeare's Hamlet. Cowards die many times before their death, quoted from Julius Caesar. Who wrote Macbeth? William Shakespeare. The Daffodils, কি জাতীয় রচনা? কবিতা। Shakespeare's King Lear is a tragedy. Charles Lamb was an essayist. শেক্সপিয়ার কোন সালে জন্মগ্রহণ করেন? 1564 সালে। শেক্সপিয়ার is famous for all but one of the following. বার্জোয়েস ড্রামা কমেডি অফ এরর্স নাটকটি কে লিখেছেন? উইলিয়াম শেক্সপিয়ার। হুইচ পিরিয়ড ইজ নোন অ্যাজ দ্য গোল্ডেন পিরিয়ড অফ ইংলিশ লিটারেচার? দ্য এলিজাবেথিয়ান এজ। হোয়ার ইজ expressed the view that there is a divinity that shapes our ends? In Hamlet. Paradise Lost was written by John Milton. Whom is the English epic poet John Milton? Who wrote the book Paradise Resides? John Milton. A lexicographer is a person who writes dictionaries. Poet Alexander Pope's famous work Rape of the Lock. Of the following authors who wrote an epic? John Milton. Who wrote the book Ivanhoe? Sir Walter Scott. Who is considered to be the father of English novel? Henry Fielding. ইংরেজি ভাষায় প্রথম অভিধান কে রচনা করেন? স্যামুয়েল জনসন। শোকগীতি লাইসিডাস কে রচনা করেন? জন মিল্টন। হু রোট দ্য বুক গালিভারস ট্রাভেলস? জনাথন স্বিফট। Edmund Burke belonged to 18th century. Who wrote the novel Robinson Crusoe? Daniel Defoe. Who was the mock heroic poet in English literature? Alexander Pope. Who was the following was a both poet and painter? William Blake. Who is called the poet of nature in English literature? William Wordsworth. Who is known as poet of sensuousness? John Keats. Most important feature of a romantic poetry is subjectivity, or on a Grecian urn. Who is the poet of poem? John Keats. Who is called the poet of beauty? John Keats. Who was the English poet addicted to opium? St. Coleridge. Who wrote the poem Solitary Reaper? William Wordsworth. The Solitary Reaper is a romantic poem. Wordsworth was inspired by the French Revolution. জাস্টিস কবিতাটির রচয়িতাকে? হেনরি ওয়াডসওয়ার্থ লংফেলো। who is considered to be the rebel poet in English literature, Lord Byron, who was not a poet of romantic age, উইলিয়াম ব্ল্যাককে অনেকে রোমান্টিক যুগের কবি মনে করেন না। The poet of romantic age, John Keats, whose poetry is written by Sir Walter Scott, Patriotism. উল্লেখ্য যে দ্য প্যাট্রিয়ট নামে রবার্ট ব্রাউনিং এর কবিতা রয়েছে, এখানে কনফিউশন হতে হয়, তাই ভালো করে পড়ে রাখুন। John Keats is primarily a poet of beauty who wrote Pride and Prejudice, Jane Austen. Romanticism is mainly connected with love and beauty. কোন ইংরেজ কবি যক্ষার রোগে মৃত্যুবরণ করেন? জন কিটস। 1798 থেকে 1830 সাল পর্যন্ত সময়কে ইংরেজি সাহিত্যের কোন কাল বলা হয়? দ্য রোমান্টিক এজ। উইলিয়াম হ্যাজলিট ছিলেন এসেইস্ট হু ইজ প্যারালেল টু উইলিয়াম ওয়ার্ডসওয়ার্থ স্টিকলারিস। ওয়ার্ডসওয়ার্থ wrote the Lucy poem. Who wrote Ode to a Nightingale? John Keats. Who is the author of The Rime of Ancient Mariner? Stephen. লুসি সম্পর্কে কবিতা কোন কবি রচনা করেন? উইলিয়াম ওয়ার্ডসওয়ার্থ। ভরতপক্ষী ও সমীকরণের কবি, পোয়েট অফ স্কাইলার্ক অ্যান্ড উইন্ডস নামে পরিচিত কে? পি.বি. শেলি। জন কিটস কোন শ্রেণীর কবি? রোমান্টিক। ব্রাউনিং was the composer of any of the following poems? Andromeda Charso. In which century was the Victorian period? 19th century. Who is the poet of the Victorian age? Robert Browning. A Tale of Two Cities is a novel by Charles Dickens. Who wrote War and Peace? Leo Tolstoy. Vanity Fair is a novel by Thackeray. Charles Dickens is a great novelist. Who created the detective Sherlock Holmes? Sir A. Conan Doyle. Who is the author of Around the World in 80 Days? Julius Verne. Who is the author of The Origin of Species? Charles Darwin. The Patriot কবিতাটি কে রচনা করেছেন? রবার্ট ব্রাউনিং। কোন পুস্তকটি চার্লস ডিকেন্সের লেখা? ডেভিড কপারফিল্ড। One of the following authors on is France. Who is he? Alexander Dumas. Charles Dickens is not the novelist for one of the following: Treasure Island. It was written by R.L. Stevenson. Who is the author of the novel Three Musketeers? Alexander Dumas. Lorna is a novel by Blackmore. Browning wrote Rabbi Ben Ezra. Alfred Tennyson wrote The Lotus Eaters. Uncle Tom's Cabin এর লেখক কে? মিসেস হ্যারিয়েট স্টল। নিম্নোক্তদের মধ্যে ভিক্টোরিয়ান যুগের কবি কে? রবার্ট ব্রাউনিং। জর্জ ইলিয়টের প্রকৃত নাম কি ছিল? মেরি এনি ইভান্স। One of the four mentioned below is not a novelist of modern age. Who is he? Charles Dickens. The Rape of বাংলাদেশ গ্রন্থের লেখক কে? অ্যান্টনি মাসকারেনহাস। ডক্টর জিভাগো বইটির লেখক কে? বরিস পেস্টারনাক। আমেরিকান ফিমেল novelist Paul Esbach got Nobel Prize in 1938 for the book The Good Earth. The God of Small Things is written by Arundhati Roy. Who of the following was a poet? T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot is an English poet who is famous for his sensuousness. What do T.S. stands for? Thomas Stearns. Bertrand Russell was a British philosopher. Elizabethan tragedy centered on revenge. What is the salient feature of all literature? Artistic quality. The Victorian age is named after Queen Victoria. The Romantic age in English literature began with the publication of preface to lyrical ballads. Which century was the Victorian period? 19th century. Who is called the poet of beauty? John Keats. who is called the poet of poets, Edmund Spenser, who is called the poet of nature, William Wordsworth, who is the father of English novel, G.B. Shaw, who is the father of short story, Edgar A. Poe, who is the father of English poetry, Geoffrey Chaucer. O. Henry is a famous short story. Who is the founder of English prose, Alfred? Who is the English epic poet, John Milton? Who is the author of A Farewell to Arms, Ernest Hemingway? Who is the author of Animal Farms, George Orwell? Who is the author of Isle of Innisfree, W. B. Yeats? A Passage to India is written by E. M. Forster. Who wrote the play The Tempest, William Shakespeare? Who wrote the comedy Measure for Measure, Shakespeare? The poem The Solitary Reaper is written by William Wordsworth. What is a funny poem of 5 lines called Limerick? The play Candida is written by G.B. Shaw. Who wrote the novel The Rainbow? D.H. Lawrence. Who wrote the novel The Tale of Two Cities? Charles Dickens. Francis Bacon is an essayist. Who wrote the play Midsummer Night? William Shakespeare. Who wrote Paradise Lost? John Milton. Who wrote Hamlet? William Shakespeare. Who wrote Man and Superman? G.B. Shaw. Who wrote Good Earth? Paul S. Bach. The Merchant of Venice is written by Shakespeare. Gulliver's Travels is written by Jonathan Swift, who is the author of 1984, George Orwell. The Rape of Bangladesh is written by Anthony Mascarenhas, who is the writer of Sherlock Holmes, Sir A. Conan Doyle, who is the author of The God of Small Things, Arundhati Roy, who is the author of the Spanish tragedy Thomas Kyd, who wrote the novel The Sun Also Rises, Ernest Hemingway. The poem The Solitary Reaper is written by William Wordsworth. The play Arms and the Man is written by G.B. Shaw. Riders to the Sea is a one-act play. Othello is a Shakespeare's play about a Moor who wrote the play The Tempest, William Shakespeare. Who wrote the play Caesar and Cleopatra, G.B. Shaw. Pride and Prejudice is a novel. Who is the author of India Wins Freedom? Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. Who is the author of Paradise Resigned? John Milton. Brick Lane is written by Monica Ali. Who is the author of Crime and Punishment? Dostoevsky. Who is the author of The Time Machine? H.G. Wells. The Origin of a Species was written by William Shakespeare. The book Oliver Twist was written by Charles Dickens. Who wrote the book Comedy of Errors? William Shakespeare. Who is the author of Arabian Nights? Sir Richard Burton. Who is the author of A Brief History of Time? Stephen Hawking. Romeo and Juliet is a tragedy. The epic Odyssey was written by Homer, who is the author of Harry Potter series. J.K. Rowling. War and Peace is written by Tolstoy, who is the author of Old Man and the Sea. Hemingway, who wrote Ethiopia. Sir Thomas More, who wrote the tragedy of King Lear. William Shakespeare, who written an apology for poetry. Philip Sidney. A Doll's House is written by Henry Gibson. Who wrote the book Ivanhoe? Sir Walter Scott. Uncle Tom's Cabin, written by Mrs. Harriet Stone. Who is the author of Spirits of Islam? Syed Amir Ali. Fairy Queen is an epic. Who wrote A Golden Age? Tahmina Anam. The author of the book The Judgment is Kuldeep Nayar. Twelfth Night is written by William Shakespeare. The author of the book The Last Lee is Robert Herrick. Who is the author of the drama, Joanna Park, G.B. Shaw. Cowards die many times before their death, said by William Shakespeare. If winter comes, can spring be far behind? Is famous from Shelley's Ode to the West Wind. To err is human, to forgive divine is written by Pope. To be or not to be, that is the question, is a famous dialogue from Hamlet, who wrote, where ignorance is bliss, it is fully to be wise. Thomas Gray, justice delayed is justice denied, was stated by Gladstone. When wisdom brings no profit, to be wise to is to suffer is taken from King Oedipus, who wrote the line of all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. What's up? Beauty is truth, truth is beauty is written by Keats. God face is the best letter of recommendation said by Queen Mary. He prayed best who laughed best was stunned by St. Coloris. Child is the father of a man is taken from the writing of William Wordsworth. Our sweetest songs are those that tell of saddest thoughts. Who is poet of this line? Poet of this line, Shelley. What is limerick? A form of light verse. Melodrama is kind of play of violent and sensational themes. An elegy is a poem of expressing sadness. What is catastrophe? The tragic end of dramatic events. Anthem is a national song. The word emphysema means description of a disagreeable thing by an agreeable name. What is an epic? A long narrative poem. 10,000 saw I at a glance is a figure of speech known as hyperbole. A prose is an introduction to a play or a literary work. A fiction means a branch of literature that describes imaginary people and events. Ballad means romantic folk song. Climax is related to drama. A Machiavellian character is a selfish person. প্রিয় বন্ধুরা, আজ এ পর্যন্তই। সবাই ভালো থাকুন, সুস্থ থাকুন। চ্যানেলটি সাবস্ক্রাইব না করলে সাবস্ক্রাইব করুন এবং যারা সাবস্ক্রাইব করেছেন তারা আমাদের সঙ্গেই থাকুন। আমাদের ভুল ত্রুটি হলে কমেন্টের মাধ্যমে জানিয়ে দিন। আমাদের ক্ষুদ্র প্রয়াস আপনাদের যদি সামান্য কোনো উপকারে আসে তাহলেই নিজেকে সৌভাগ্যবান মনে করব। আল্লাহ হাফেজ।